So that was the thing where it's like I was a little let down because like I just watched the original. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching the same thing, but yeah, this is 27 minutes longer than the original film, and I don't feel like I really got that much more out of it.
What's up, YouTube? We are Drive By Movies, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaze.
And today we are checking out the new HBO Max exclusive, The Witches.
Who's gonna stop me? Doesn't matter who you are or what you look like, so long as somebody loves you.
You wouldn't happen to be carrying around a mouse on your person, now would you?
A mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth would I be carrying around a mouse?
Based on the 1983 Roald Dahl classic, The Witches is a story that tells a scary, funny, and imaginative tale of a 7-year-old boy who has a run-in with some real-life witches. So I am a huge fan of the original Witches. It's a Nicholas Roeg film. I thought it was incredible. As a kid, it was one of those things that scarred me. A lot of the images of Anjelica Huston peeling off her face and becoming this disgusting witch literally are kind of scarred into my brain. Inside my cornea is this image of Anjelica Huston peeling her face off. So The Witches is just a film that really, I loved as a kid, but also was terrified at the same time. So it was like a weird love-hate relationship, I guess you could say. I've always, talked highly of The Witches, but this is a remake. This is, The Witches told by Robert Zemeckis. It's his interpretation. You have a film that almost seems like a shot-for-shot remake at certain times, and then other times it, maybe it develops more on the book. I read the book a long time ago when I was a young child. Don't really remember it since I've seen the film. It had to have been at least 27 years ago or something. But anyways, I would like to know what you thought of it, James. What'd you think of Robert Zemeckis' The Witches?
Well, I'm so curious what you thought about it too, seeing that you are a big fan of the movie. But into my thought first, though, I guess it's okay. I don't remember the original all that well. Of course, I remember the main pivotal scene where the witches are revealed, them taking their wigs off, peeling certain skin body parts off and revealing their true form. That was a creepy scene. I remember also a lot of practical effects going into the kids turning into mice and that as well too. I don't remember the overall general plot, but I just remember that one transformation scene, and you can easily find clips of it on YouTube and stuff, and I remember coming across a lot of video essays, scenes that scarred you as a kid and stuff, and that movie would usually turn up on it. Anjelica Huston, I really miss her as an actress. I know I've seen her in a couple Wes Anderson movies more recently, but just it's cool remembering her as the goth queen of the 90s and stuff, so beautiful and so great in the Addams Family movies. And then also, I still remember her performance in The Witches somewhat pretty well though. Out of anything that I remember from the original 90s version of the movie, I remember that. But with this one, it felt familiar. There were some stuff I liked about it, but I had high regards with names attached to it. Robert Zemeckis has made some of my favorite films of all time. We've watched Back to the Future Part 3 for the first time, Blaze for Never Have I Ever. I mean, I love the whole trilogy, and then, I love Forrest Gump. I love a lot of his other movies too. But, I had high hopes going into it with his name attached, and I do like Anne Hathaway. I love that she's played some of her favorite roles. I can see that she probably really wanted this role. I know she was dying to get the role of Catwoman. Now she got the role to play this awesome witch and stuff. But it was just okay, I felt I think it's good for kids because a lot of kids probably have never heard of the original. It's a movie that I've forgotten about. If I had kids, it's probably something I would show, but this is a good one to show them as well too. It's just it didn't do it for me as a somewhat fan of the original, I'd say.
So I have to say, when getting into the movie for myself, I was about to start the movie up. I'm all right, HBO Max, let's go. I'm looking at the cover. I'm oh, Witches. I really love the original movie. but I had only seen it. I mean, I'd seen it plenty of times. It was one of the only VHS films that like my family owned. We owned the most random VHS selection. This was one of the movies I probably watched front to back, you know, a couple, I wouldn't say hundreds of times because I can't remember, but I probably watched it, you know, obviously more than once. So I was getting ready to watch this one. I'm like, I haven't seen it since I was a little kid. I don't remember the film exactly. A lot of the images are imprinted in my mind, imprinted in my brain, but I hadn't seen the movie like front to back as an adult. So I'm like, you know what? I should probably actually do this film a service, like do my memory a service even, and watch the movie again before getting into the sequel. I don't know if, or not the sequel, sorry, the remake, but I don't know if that's always the best way to do things. But for this one, I felt like I owed it a service because I always talk about this movie, but I haven't actually watched it since I've been an adult. So I was like, let me get into it. Let me watch the original Nicholas Roeg's The Witches. I have a lot of love for that director. He started as a cinematographer. I think he might have been an editor at a time, and then he became a director. I love his film The Walkabout. It's given me a lot of love for like that kind of genre of these like outback, somewhat Western type movies. And it was fun to kind of revisit this movie with no real knowledge of what happens from scene to scene. But then when you watch it, it feels very like you watched it the other day, you know, like it seemed very much like that. So I'm like, oh, I kind of want to watch this again. I watched it, I checked it out. Then I boot up Robert Zemeckis' The Witches. And I have to say, it felt so much like a shot for shot remake. Whether that's a bad thing or not, there are elements to it where I'm like, there are elements I do not like about the movie. Obviously, I'll just preface it. You're probably going to guess the CGI wasn't my favorite thing. There's an overabundance of CGI in the movie, which seems fine. But when you're making a shot for shot kind of remake of the movie, it seems like unnecessary at times. Like it seems unnecessary if you're just going to do a shot for shot remake of a movie that's all practical, why even bother with CGI at that point? You know, like, and if you one up every scene just so much, but you're still copying the original imagery, the original pastiche of the original film, why, like, just how about, like, if you're gonna go CGI, all CGI heavy, like, how about be more imaginative than just doing a shot for shot remake? That's at least how I felt. Like, it seems like everyone in the movie is giving such a nod to the original movie that it almost feels like there are elements of it that they forgot that there was a book that this was based on. Like, it is based on a book, and I know that there are probably parts of this film where they definitely lend themselves more to being, you know, faithful to the book as opposed to the original film. But the majority of this film, they're being very faithful to the original film, not the book itself. So that was the thing where it's like I was a little let down because like I just watched the original. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching the same thing, but yeah, this is 27 minutes longer than the original film, and I don't feel like I really got that much more out of it.
Yeah, I mean, also I think the problem with a lot of these homage kind of movies where they're trying not to put a disgrace to the original name. Why make a movie if you're not going to make it stand the test of time? Just because I'm not a fan of this CGI style. I'm not sure, like, budget restraints with COVID could play a part in it, but it really felt like the Tim Burton style CGI we saw in like Alice in Wonderland or Dark Shadows, like all those kind of movies where it's very animated feel. It feels kid friendly. But it just, that style doesn't work for me. I don't know if they were going for that style. Sometimes the mice did look pretty realistic, and, you know, some of it's good, but already I'm getting the more vibes of like King Kong, the Peter Jackson version, or the Thing remake or not the remake, but the prequel that came out like sometime this decade, a few years ago. Where it's like a love letter. They're not trying to put any disgrace to the original. They're not bad movies, but just like, why do it if it's not going to stand the test of time? Like, even though like those movies, like, you know, I somewhat enjoyed this movie, but just like, what's the point if you're not going to make it stand the test of time? And cool, you're making this movie, like, there's a lot of people who don't know about it from this generation, but I expect more from Robert Zemeckis, as I said, but also Guillermo del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón. Their names are attached to this. Like, I know Alfonso Cuarón and also even Robert Zemeckis, they're very like kind of special effects driven where they're trying to push the boundaries on that. It's cool, but is it going to stand the test of time? I expect way more from Guillermo del Toro in that department. And that's just where I find the disappointment with this movie. Like I said, it's not the worst thing ever, but if your introduction to the witches is this, like, I'm just like, it just feels like you might as well just show the original. Like, this is easier to access maybe, but, you know, I'm sure the original, though, like, if it's out there and it's easy to stream somewhere, just go check that out instead. I don't know where you can stream it, but I'm going to recommend that already over this one. I mean, I own it on VHS, and funny that you said you had it on VHS. Like, I never would have thought that was one of the movies you owned the most. Or
might be the same copy.
Yeah, it might
my
be.
favorite movies that I owned were, I think, The Neverending Story, Witches, and The Hobbit.
Okay.
Funny enough,
I
the
remember you
animated
mentioning
feature.
that.
Like, those are the movies I watched to death as a kid, and I feel like they very much influenced me on like what I like.
Yeah.
But also, I hold them dear. You know, like I absolutely love the original Hobbit. Just when I had seen the Peter Jackson version and Gollum didn't look at all like that slimy creature he was in the original Hobbit,
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed actually. As
Yeah.
much as I love the original Lord of the Rings movies, I was disappointed that Gollum wasn't dripping in slime. Like, I felt like
Right.
that would have just added this extra element to him. But anyways, getting back to the witches, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think one of the most things that I'm disappointed in this movie is just the fact that Guillermo del Toro really wanted this movie to be, all the effects to be entirely in stop motion animation.
Really?
And it's funny
Yeah.
because the original movie, the mouse effects, like the little boys are turned into mice, and they use little puppets, and the puppets are fun. Like, as a child, like, or at least being even a child in the 90s or earlier than that, puppet shows were such a huge part of being a child. I know they're probably not so much now, so I'll, give credit to that, I guess. Maybe CGI is things that kids love because they play so many video games and stuff. But it was disappointing to see, like, the mice effects just looked like something out of Stuart Little, which was how many years ago? Like, it wasn't significantly better than Stuart Little, like, how many years are we further than that? Stuart Little was actually really innovative for its time, so it just seems disappointing that we're so many years away from that. We're only getting something that we got maybe in, I don't remember the exact year of Stuart Little, maybe it was 2003, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it just seems like somewhat disappointing. It's just almost the same thing. They weren't better, they weren't worse, but they were done almost 20 years ago. So it's a little disappointing where you could have done something more fun that was stop motion. Maybe it cost too much, but then that's just disappointing. You're just cutting corners. This film was originally supposed to go to theaters and it ended up on HBO Max. It does a fine purpose, but enough kind of like, I don't want to dump on the film too much because I didn't think it was like horrible. It was enjoyable to watch. But one of the things that was the most enjoyable for me to watch about this movie was I thought Octavia Spencer absolutely carried this film on her back. Like, she's the most fun to watch. So something about the original movie is the grandma character who Octavia Spencer portrays in this version of it. The original grandma was just okay. Like she's just fine. This film had so much taste in the production design, was well done. There was just so many fun sets and atmosphere. It was supposed to be in, I think it was New Orleans, but they had like ties to, like the South. So it was just a lot of fun with these like cool sets. It was still shot in the UK, this version, but they had all these like fun ambience that felt like something out of the most recent Lovecraft Country, where it was just like these fun southern sets, these southern characters. I thought the little boy that played, the hero I thought he was awesome. It was kind of disappointing when he became a mouse because you didn't get to see him in the picture because he had so much heart that he was giving into his performance. But, Octavia Spencer was with us throughout the entirety of the film, and I thought she was absolutely wonderful. It reminded me of something like another Roald Dahl story, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Grandpa Joe, like, he might be an asshole, like, as Reddit knows, but he's still a lot of fun in the movie. Like, anytime he gets in any of the songs and stuff, it was absolute fun. So I felt like Octavia Spencer, when she's singing, I forget in the beginning, but she's singing these songs, and it kind of wells your heart up. You're really enjoying, watching this film. And I thought she was absolutely one of the best things about this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna try to get into the stuff that I did like about it, just because, like, I don't want people to think I'm trashing it. I'm just definitely recommending the original over it. But don't get me wrong, there's still a lot to enjoy about this movie. Everyone who did this, you can tell, wanted to be there. Octavia Spencer, I'd definitely say, is a highlight. Anne Hathaway is, of course, like, the lead actress, the biggest actress that's in this movie. I mean, not to take away from Stanley Tucci, also a fantastic actor. Also, Chris Rock narrating the movie. I'm not sure if there was narration in the original, but I did like hearing his voice for this and brought some fun comedic elements to it. And it does leave room for a sequel with this one. I don't remember that in the original one as well. But, like, you can tell Anne Hathaway really loved this character and really wanted to be it. I mean, what I love most about Anne Hathaway is she always chooses roles where she was always inspired by someone. She was inspired by Michelle Pfeiffer and wanted to be Catwoman. Now she wanted to be Angelica Houston in this. So, like, she definitely gave something new, and I appreciated that. But, it just, like, took away from, like, CGI effects that would, like, not age well and stuff. Like, I did like, of course, the creepy, gross, like, acne and weird colors of the witches and stuff. Like, really stood out and made them look so grotesque, and just, like, those images still stuck with my head. Like, I'm easily visualizing them now, but now I'm just remembering Anne Hathaway with, like, a Chelsea grin. If you don't know what a Chelsea grin is, it's like a weird welcome that football players created, I think, in Chelsea, where they, like, will punch a credit card through your mouth or something like that. And that's just what it looked like and stuff. So, yeah. Or if you listen to the deathcore band from Utah or whatever, that's what a Chelsea grin is. Yeah.
So something that I definitely wanted to talk about when, entering this film was I watched the original, then I watched this, and I compare them slightly, but I really think the easiest, point to compare is just the fact that the endings of them are so drastically different, which is totally fine. I actually really appreciate that this film, made an effort to be different than the original film. I felt like, you take your creative freedom from whether it's the novel or the original film, which this is a remake of, or whether it's just a reinterpretation of the novel. I like that you take a different approach. And this is a really kind of dark ending, but at the same time, they try and make it light by having Chris Rock, who's been narrating the entire movie, be just an older version of the hero mouse, essentially. But the original film did it where he is a mouse, but then the witch who is scorned by Angelica Houston basically kind of becomes a good witch, like almost a Glenda the Good Witch, and then goes back and turns Bruno and the main character back into human beings, essentially. So they didn't do that, and, like, all the witches kind of die, and now they're starting to build up this resistance to fight against all the witches around the world and kind of inspire these kids to go fight against the witches. I thought this film's ending had a lot of jest, and it did have fun, but it is kind of dark because I feel like you see Chris Rock being, like, such an old mouse. You're like, oh man, dude, mice don't live that long. You only got a couple years left, bud. Like, so it's still kind of dark. Like, I did like the ending. I thought the original ending was better, but to not compare them, I thought the ending was fun. I know Roald Dahl endings are usually pretty dark, so I still think it had a lot of fun where they're, like, trying to make it dark, but still trying to make a lot of fun where they're having, like, little kids now, like, playing to kill witches. I did actually really enjoy the ending.
Yeah, I was surprised to see a Chris Rock mouse with a beard and stuff. And the dark ending for this one was definitely one, I don't remember if it happens in the original, but I'm glad that you brought up the original ending just because I didn't remember. But the other mouse that got turned, the one who liked to eat a lot, when his, like, parents are just like, no, I'm not taking a mouse and stuff, and then, like, got adopted with his friends and his grandma. Like, I thought that was, like, sweet and stuff. And I'm just saying, like, overall for this movie though, like, am I recommending it? If it's your first time being introduced to the witches, go for it. If you have kids, definitely show this to them. I don't see why they wouldn't like it. But if you've never seen it, have no context, or if you're a fan of the original, like, this isn't going to be, like, the best interpretation. I'd say there's a better interpretation. It's still from the 90s. This movie's made as a love letter. It's not the best love letter. It doesn't tarnish the original by any means, but I'd say start with that one. And if you're a fan of the original, you might not like this one, but it's still good to show off for your kids and stuff. And it would be a good, fun family film, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say honestly, if you want to see this movie in the best interpretation, I say go check out the original. I thought the original just offered such a fun take that this movie honestly just takes and creates a love letter out of, all right, let's basically just redo the original Nicholas Roeg film, which has so much charm and so much fun to it. But, you know, they add new elements of charm, new elements of fun, but just so much CGI that I really wasn't enjoying that so much. I think if you watch this movie though, and you do enjoy it, you know, go check out the original. It might be a lot of fun for you to check it out.
Yeah, perfectly said. You know, that's going to conclude really this week's episode. But if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go check it out on HBO Max. Let us know what your thoughts are. A good way to help us is by watching the movie and letting us know through a comment what you thought about the movie. Would love to hear your thoughts and respond to you.
And if you haven't already, guys, smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
Can't get enough of Drive By Movies. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to check our links down in our description box. As for this episode, that's going to conclude. Tune in next week for a brand new video.